Located in the heart of Tokyo, right next to the Korakuen amusement park, are two buildings that serve as the headquarters of Kodokan Judo. Judo, needless to say, is an Olympic sport. According to one account, it is practiced in 207 countries and regions, with a total of 20 million people participating worldwide. The founder is Jigoro Kano, and at the entrance of the Kodokan headquarters building stands a bronze statue of him. While many founders of Asian martial arts are known for mastering secret techniques and ultimate skills, often with extraordinary tales of bravery that lead to their deification, such flamboyant promotion is not associated with Kano. As a result, compared to other martial arts founders, he may give a somewhat modest impression, but the influence he had on the martial arts world is immeasurable. In recent years, as MMA has become firmly established as a sport, such scenes have largely disappeared, but in the past, it was common to see various martial arts schools promoting their own style as the strongest. Jigoro Kano outwardly kept his distance from such debates, but in the early days of the Kodokan, inter-style and even interdiscipline matches were held. It's not widely known, but there was even a period when development toward a practical, comprehensive martial art that included striking was being explored. In the public eye, his achievements are often reduced to simply founding Kodokan Judo. However, his influence extended beyond judo alone, affecting virtually all forms of unarmed Japanese martial arts in some way. Without his existence, judo would likely have remained jujutsu, never becoming a subject taught in schools or an Olympic sport. Not only judo and jujutsu, but even karate may not have developed into the global martial art it is today without his impact. It would not be an exaggeration to say that Jigoro Kano is the most important figure in the history of modern Japanese martial arts. In search of deeper information, our staff combed through historical materials at the Judo Library and Museum, located within the Kodokan headquarters. Amazingly, both are free of charge. Being the headquarters dojo of one of Japan's representative martial arts, we felt a bit nervous before entering. But once inside, we realized it may be the most pressure-free dojo to enter and leave among all martial arts facilities. That's because visiting the dojo requires no reservation or check-in. Anyone can come and go freely at their convenience. Visitors take the elevator up to the 8th floor and head directly to the viewing seats. The practice schedule is posted on the Kodokan website. The dojo is structured much like a university gymnasium, allowing visitors to observe the practice from above. When observing regular training, you may sit wherever there's an open seat. Unfortunately, photography is prohibited inside the museum, library, and dojo. But on the opposite side of the hallway from the museum, there is a corner where visitors can take photos wearing a judogi. As we went through the historical materials, we uncovered many lesser-known aspects of Kano: his distinguished family background, connections with historical figures, mastery of both academics and martial arts, his identity as an educator, his remarkable character, unexpected interactions with other great martial artists, his humble yet relentless approach to learning various martial arts, and the fact that he was striving to create a comprehensive martial art. This time, alongside the story of how Jujutsu evolved into judo, we aim to shed light on the little-known true image of Jigoro Kano. Since the main theme here is the character of Kano Jigoro, we will only briefly touch on the origins of Jujutsu, the martial art that forms the foundation of Kodokan Judo. We plan to create a video explaining Jujutsu in more detail in the future, so if you're interested, please like and subscribe. Jujutsu is broadly considered synonymous with Yawara, Taijutsu, Wajutsu, Torita Jutsu, Kogusoku Jutsu, Kenpo, Kumyuchi, and Shuhaku. There are several theories about its origin. On the battlefield, where warriors were covered in armor and helmets, combat did not always end with swords. Even after slashing once, twice, or 3 times, the blows might be deflected by the armor. This would lead to close-quarter grappling. Strikes were ineffective against armored opponents, but joint locks were still effective. This background is one reason why striking-based martial arts never firmly took root in ancient Japan. After subduing an enemy, a samurai could deliver a fatal blow with a small dagger through the gaps in the armor. Jujutsu developed as the battlefield combat technique of the samurai. When capturing criminals or subduing prisoners, where killing was not the goal, jujutsu techniques were used to restrain them and tie them up with rope. As will be mentioned later, modern Japanese police are required to train in either kendo or Kodokan judo as a martial arts subject. During the Edo period, commoners were strictly forbidden from carrying swords. As a result, learning jujutsu was often the only option for self-defense. It is said that many jujutsu schools emerged between the 17th and early 19th centuries. The oldest jujutsu school that can currently be traced through historical records is Takenouchi-ryu Koshi no Mawari Kogosoku, said to have been founded on June 24, 1532. There is also a theory that jujutsu was brought to Japan by the Chinese martial artist Chen Yuanyun. In Tokyo's Atago Shrine, there is a stone monument called the Kito-ryu Kenpo-hi. This monument was erected in February 1779. The inscription on the stone reads, "The transmission of Kenpo began with the Ming Chinese Chen Yuanyun." Based on this, some claim that Chen Yuanyun is the ancestor of Japanese jujutsu. However, since multiple schools of jujutsu, such as Takenouchi-ryu, already existed before Chen Yuanyun came to Japan, the theory of Chinese origin is highly likely to be fictional. Kodokan itself clearly rejects this theory. In 1868, with the Meiji Restoration came the end of the samurai era and the beginning of cultural importation from the West. Japan, eager to cast off its status as a backward Asian culture and join the ranks of the modernized Western nations, threw its efforts into modernization. As a result, a sense of disdain for other Asian cultures grew, and traditional Japanese arts, including martial arts, came to be dismissed as relics of a backward era. It was in this cultural climate that Kodokan Judo was born. Kano Jigoro's grandfather ran a sake brewing business in Hyogo and also managed a shipping company that transported the sake to Edo, present-day Tokyo. He was also a supporter of Katsu Kaishu, who later became the last commander-in-chief of the Tokugawa shogunate's army and played a major role in the bloodless surrender of Edo Castle. This is the TV commercial of Kikumasamune. The families behind Kikumasamune and Hakutsuru, two of Japan's most famous and widely available sake brands, found even in convenience stores nationwide, are relatives of Kano. This is the TV commercial of Hakutsuru. As you can see, Kano Jigoro came from a distinguished family background. His nephew was none other than Yanagi Soetsu, one of Japan's most prominent art critics. From a young age, he excelled academically, studying English and German at what is now Tokyo University of Foreign Studies. In 1875, he entered what is now Japan's top university, the University of Tokyo, a difficult academic achievement. However, he was also bullied by larger children and grew up with a complex about his weak physical constitution. Wanting to overcome his frailness, Kano decided to enter a jujutsu dojo. At that time, karate had not yet reached the Japanese mainland, so unarmed combat in Japan essentially meant a choice between sumo and jujutsu. Kano would later attain Menkyo Kaiden, full transmission indicating mastery to the level where there is nothing left to be taught, in the Tenshin Shinyo-ryu and Kido-ryu schools of Jujutsu. While the Jujutsu world at the time believed that sheer repetition and quantity of training led to strength, Kano went beyond just the amount of practice. He analyzed and organized the principles of Jujutsu logically, focusing on improving the reproducibility of advanced techniques. As a result, he quickly acquired techniques that more than compensated for his small stature, and he rapidly rose to prominence in the Jujutsu community. As a side note, the Kido-ryu school that Kano studied is the same style practiced by the Japanese dojo students in Bruce Lee's movie Fist of Fury. Before the Meiji era, Jujutsu training mainly consisted of prearranged forms, called kata, where the practitioner would repeatedly rehearse fixed responses to specific movements, such as, if the opponent moves like this, respond like that. However, by the late Edo period, some schools began to rise to prominence by incorporating randori, sparring, into their training, free practice that simulated unpredictable real combat situations. At the time, Jujutsu also included striking techniques known as atami. Because of this, schools that practiced randori often saw frequent injuries such as bruises and dislocations. In response, Jujutsu practitioners developed sophisticated joint-setting and healing techniques. This union of the killing techniques, sappo, of martial arts, and the healing techniques, kappo, led to the evolution of modern Japanese bone-setting therapy. In 1880, while still a student at the University of Tokyo, Kano made a surprise appearance at a demonstration by the Totsuka Yoshin-ryu, one of the most powerful traditional jujutsu schools of the time, and defeated a large and formidable opponent. Suddenly joining training at a dojo and requesting a match against its strongest member is called a dojo yabari, dojo breaker. In the world of East Asian martial arts, there's a saying, never let a dojo breaker leave in one piece. Losing such a challenge could threaten the very credibility of a dojo, so it was customary to severely injure the challenger if necessary. The practice served not only as a way to advertise a school's strength, but also as a deterrent against rogue martial artists seeking fame through brash challenges. To jump into a public demonstration uninvited carried even more weight than a standard dojo challenge. It wasn't done in the spirit of camaraderie or goodwill. For the opponent, losing was absolutely unacceptable. It's easy to imagine that the challenger, Kano, was met with an intent to seriously injure. Likewise, the host school almost certainly sent out one of its most powerful representatives. That the small-framed Kano defeated a towering Jujutsuka from a prestigious dojo, the small overcoming the large, caused an immediate stir. Kano's name spread as that of a rare and formidable jujutsu master. However, it's worth noting that there are multiple versions of this story. The accounts from the Kodokan and those from the Yoshin-ryu differ significantly. Erwin von Baelz contributed to Das Kano Jujutsu, Judo, which was published in Germany, and in that contribution he wrote about a martial arts demonstration that took place at the University of Tokyo. According to that writing, the demonstration of Yoshin-koryu at the University of Tokyo was realized after Kano of Kodokan Judo and his disciples requested the university to invite Hikosuke Totsuka from Chiba. In the grand jujutsu match held in the university auditorium, it is recorded that not a single one of the young men from Tokyo, including Kano himself, was able to compete with the disciples of Hikosuke Totsuka. Chiyomatsu Ishikawa, an acquaintance of Kano who studied Kodokan Judo and Tenjin Shinyo-ryu, wrote the following about the demonstration by Hikosuke Totsuka at the University of Tokyo. Around the 15th year of Meiji, circa 1882, there was an event in the auditorium of a university in Hitotsubashi, where a swordsmanship teacher named Sakakibara and a teacher from the Totsuka school came to demonstrate martial arts. The Totsuka style used in this demonstration was quite rough, not caring about technique or form, simply fighting until the opponent surrendered. The old teacher was around 80 years old and brought with him a younger teacher and 4 disciples referred to as the 4 guardians of Totsukaha. At an appropriate moment, Professor Hamao of the university encouraged Kano to try a match, so Kano ended up facing the largest of the 4 heavenly kings from the Totsuka school. That large man was incredibly strong, and no matter how many techniques Kano attempted, none of them worked. Eventually, the man charged ferociously and dragged Kano around. Even Kano, as skilled as he was, apparently struggled considerably in that match. After the match, both the old and the young teacher praised Kano, saying, "It is admirable that someone devoted to academic study is able to fight such an extraordinarily strong man." Inoue Tetsujiro, who was present at the demonstration by Totsuka Hikosuke at the University of Tokyo, wrote the following in his book Kaikyuroku, Recollections. It was around the 12th or 13th year of Meiji, 1880-1881, when Dr. Kato suggested that Jujutsu be introduced at the university. This gradually progressed, and eventually tatami mats were laid out in the university auditorium, and a Jujutsu teacher was invited. This teacher was Hikosuke Totsuka, a former retainer of the Tokugawa shogunate. At that time, Totsuka was working as a prison guard Jujutsu instructor. He brought with him 7 or 8 disciples and first demonstrated the Jujutsu forms. Totsuka was around 60 years old at the time. After he demonstrated the forms, his disciples sparred with each other. They were all quite strong-looking disciples. The auditorium was filled with university faculty and students. Totsuka Hikosuke was known to have been the last person to win at the Kobusho during the Bakumatsu period, and it was said that at the time, no one in Jujutsu could rival him. While the disciples were sparring, one of the university students, after removing his kimono, entered the dojo and began sparring with the disciples. The disciples seemed quite strong, and this student fought fiercely, turning bright red from exertion. This student was Kano, and since Kano had been practicing Jujutsu until then, he was confident and decided to challenge them. The fact that Kano struggled greatly while sparring with Totsuka's disciples was a major source of inspiration for him, and was likely a turning point in his eventual success. According to records from the Kodokan, there are varying accounts of an event that took place around 1880, before the establishment of the Kodokan, when Jigoro Kano was still training in Jujutsu. One account suggests that it occurred around 1882, while another version states that Kano defeated the Totsukaha's 4 guardians using his supernatural floating waist technique. There are also biographical accounts which embellish the story, suggesting that during a demonstration at the university auditorium, Kano applied a choking technique on Enzo Kochi, almost defeating him before the match was stopped. It is not uncommon in the martial arts world of Asia to find various different stories surrounding a single event, and when compared to the stories of other schools, this particular episode from Kano's life is rather modest. 5 years later, in 1885, Kano's Kodokan Judo, led by him, faced the Totsukaha's Yoshin-ryu school in a 10-on-10 match. This story will be discussed later. In 1882, shortly after graduating from the University of Tokyo, Kano rented a 12-tatami room and a 7-tatami study at the Eishoji Temple, where he established the Kodokan. The history of judo thus began within a temple. The reason why Kano named his art judo instead of jujutsu was not only because it was a martial art, but also because he wanted to emphasize its purpose of training both the body and the mind, strengthening individuals and developing their character, all while learning the way to contribute to society through judo. This concept of the way would later be adopted by Japan's national framework, particularly during the era of the Meiji period's emphasis on national strength, and it was extended to other martial arts such as Judo and Kendo by the Dai Nippon Butoku Kai, the Greater Japan Martial Virtue Society, which oversaw martial arts. This stone monument is inscribed as the birthplace of judo. While the original dojo has since been lost, a stone monument and guideposts marking the location of the former dojo still exist within the temple grounds. The temple is located between two of Tokyo's most famous districts, Ueno and Asakusa. As soon as you step outside the temple grounds, the bustle of people is evident, but within the small temple grounds, a peaceful silence prevails. It is quite moving to think that the Kodokan Judo was born here. In May 1883, the martial arts world introduced a ranking system, the first of its kind. This system was inspired by the ranking system of the ancient Chinese board game Go, which has been played continuously for over 2,500 years. The ranking system would later be adopted by all martial arts. The dojo would relocate several times over the years, and in 1894, the Kodokan moved from its previous location in Ichibancho, Chiyoda Ward, to a much larger facility in Shitofusaka-cho, Koishikawa Ward. A new building was constructed, and on May 20th of that year, a ceremony was held to mark the opening of the Kodokan's new main dojo, with the distinguished guest being Katsu Kaishu. In June 1922, Funakoshi Gichin, who brought karate to mainland Japan, was invited to the Kodokan, where he performed and explained the kata of karate in front of Jigoro Kano and other judo practitioners. Funakoshi performed the kata kusanku. It is said that about 200 members of the Kodokan gathered to observe, but there was little enthusiasm from the judo community, as karate lacked a sparring format akin to judo's randori. However, Kano humbly requested that Funakoshi teach him various techniques, and Funakoshi was deeply moved by Kano's respectful approach. Since then, he is said to have bowed whenever passing in front of the Kodokan. In January 1927, Kano visited Okinawa. Chojun Miyagi, the founder of Goju-ryu Karate, performed a kata. Kano was deeply impressed and urged the Okinawan masters to come to Tokyo and help promote karate on the mainland. From this period, Miyagi began to refer to karate as karate-do, following the example of judo. In 1868, the new Meiji government abolished the town magistrates and established criminal law officers, recruiting several martial arts instructors, including jujutsu masters such as Iso Mataemon of the Tenjin Shinryu, Tanaka Tokuo, and Totsuka Hidemoto of the Yoshinryu. The Jujutsu Caretakers Group was established in 1883. 3 years later, in 1886, a duel between the Kodokan and the Totsukaha Yoshinryu was held at the Metropolitan Police Department. Though the details vary depending on the source, it appears that the contest involved a battle between around 10 senior disciples from each side. While the Kodokan struggled against the Totsukaha Yoshinryu's ground techniques, they were said to have won all but 2 or 3 matches, resulting in the Kodokan officially taking on the role of managing the Metropolitan Police Department's martial arts activities, a position that continues to this day. While serving as the head of the Kodokan, Jigoro Kano was also appointed as a lecturer at Gakushuin, a school known for educating members of the imperial family and other royals, where he was eventually promoted to professor and vice principal. Kano continued his career in education and later became the principal of a government-run high school and, eventually, the principal of the University of Tokyo's Faculty of Liberal Arts. In 1893, he even became the principal of what is now the University of Tsukuba and its affiliated junior high school. During his time at the higher normal school, Kano carried out groundbreaking initiatives. He encouraged sports and established Japan's first physical education department within a school. Additionally, he created the framework for sports festivals and extracurricular clubs, systems that remain in place today, and introduced the importance of physical education to the educational system. As a result, Kano is not only known as the father of judo, but also as the father of Japanese physical education. On April 17, 1895, in response to the growing calls for national strengthening and military expansion, the Dai Nippon Butoku Kai was established with the aim of bringing together all of Japan's martial arts, promoting their spread, and honoring martial artists. In July 1906, at the Kyoto headquarters of the Dai Nippon Butoku Kai, a committee consisting of Kano, chairman of Kodokan, along with 20 jujutsu masters from 10 schools, formed the Jujutsu Kata Formulation Committee. Within a week, this committee established the kata, which was later published in 1908 by the Benrito bookstore under the title Dai Nippon Butoku Kai Seitei Jujutsu Kata. These kata later became part of the Kodokan Judo kata, though initially they aimed to unify all jujutsu schools, including Kodokan Judo. Along with the kata, efforts were made to standardize the judging rules, and in 1899, under the leadership of Kano, the competition judging rules for jujutsu were established. In 1914, the highest-ranking titles of Hanshi and Kyoshi were officially designated to use the terms Judo and Kendo instead of Jujutsu and Kenjutsu. This was likely done to clarify that the recipients of these titles were individuals who possessed both technical skill and exemplary character, and that Jujutsu and Kenjutsu should aim for this ideal. In 1919, the Butoku Kai officially changed the names of various martial arts to Budo, including renaming the Jujutsu department to the Judo department, thus unifying them under the new term. As a result, all Jujutsu practitioners officially became judoka and continued their activities under the name Judo. Shortly after its introduction to Japan, karate was designated as a lower category of judo by the Butoku Kai and officially recognized as a Japanese martial art. It is believed that without the connection between the karate world and Kano, a central figure in the judo community, this recognition would have been difficult to achieve. In 1917, the Butoku Kai adopted the Dan ranking system previously used by Kodokan. At that time, it was decided that the maximum rank that could be issued by the Butoku Kai for judo, or jujutsu, was 4th Dan. Higher Dan ranks could only be awarded by Kodokan. As a result, the Butoku Kai used the titles for judo and jujutsu above 4th Dan as equivalent to those issued by Kodokan. Later, as other martial arts adopted the Dan ranking system, the Butoku Kai began issuing its own high-ranking judo titles separate from those of Kodokan, leading to friction between Kodokan, the Butoku Kai, and other martial arts factions. As a side note, the editorial advisors for the Butokushi, Butoku Kai's journal, were Kano and Inazo Nitobe, author of Bushido, who also served as the editor. The two were acquaintances. Kano began spreading judo internationally, leveraging his linguistic skills, and in 1909, he became the first Asian member of the International Olympic Committee, IOC. In 1911, he established the Dainihan Taiku Kyokai, Greater Japan Sports Association, where he served as president and led Japan's sports community. In 1912, he participated in the Stockholm Olympics as the head of the Japanese delegation, playing a crucial role in conveying the appeal and greatness of the Olympics to Japan. Throughout his life, Kano made 13 overseas trips, performing judo exhibitions and demonstrations worldwide. In 1933, at the IOC General Assembly in Berlin, he met with Adolf Hitler. On May 4, 1938, while returning from an IOC meeting, Kano passed away aboard the Hikawa Maru due to pneumonia, just 2 days before arriving in Yokohama. However, even in his final moments, his passion for the Olympics remained strong. After Kano's death, his ideals were passed on to future generations, and in 1951, the long-awaited International Judo Federation, IJF, was founded. Then, in 1964, judo was officially included as a competitive sport in the Tokyo Olympics. Since then, the number of practitioners worldwide has surged, with more than 200 countries and regions now affiliated with the IJF. Kano Jigoro and the Kodokan rarely mentioned karate or its practitioners. The episodes involving figures like Funakoshi Gichin and Miyagi Chojun are often recounted by the karate community, but many judo practitioners remain unaware of these connections. In Kano's own writings or Kodokan-related literature, there is little to no reference to karate or karateka, karate practitioners. At least, none that have been found in the research conducted thus far. However, there is one notable exception. In a lecture given by Kano at the Tokyo Higher Normal School on August 1, 1927, 7 months after his visit to Okinawa, he made the following remark. Recently, when I visited Okinawa, I saw a man named Motobu break a board, which I estimate to be 6 or 7 centimeters thick, with his knuckles. He also easily split a double-layered board with the side of his palm. Looking at this, it occurred to me that, in situations like this, a skull could be shattered with a single strike. This made me think that, as we have taught since the founding of the Kodokan, Randori, free practice, should focus on keeping distance, waiting for an opening to capture and throw the opponent. If we continue to engage closely and twist the opponent to the ground, as is often done today, we risk injuring the arms or breaking the skull. From this, I realized that those studying judo as a martial art must put significant effort into learning atami, strikes. Motobu referred to here is Motobu Choki, a practitioner who focused on the practical aspects of Okinawan karate. Kano had initially founded judo in 1882, removing dangerous techniques like atemi, strikes to vital areas, from jujutsu and reorienting it as a path of personal development rather than a martial art. However, it seems that after witnessing Motobu's demonstration in Okinawa, he began to consider the martial aspect of judo more deeply. His words suggest a struggle between emphasizing judo as a way for human development and acknowledging that the art of judo is also rooted in the martial techniques that must not be overlooked. This internal conflict between the way of judo as a path of personal growth and its martial roots appears clearly in the remarks Kano made, reflecting his contemplation of judo's nature as both an educational and martial discipline. In the Meiji and early Showa periods, judo was solidified as the official national martial art of Japan, particularly through the Kodokan's judo, which was embraced as a state-sanctioned art. However, during this period, Western combat sports like boxing and wrestling also began to make their way into Japan, creating tension in the Japanese martial arts community. The Kodokan, led by its founder Kano Jigoro, was initially cautious about confronting Western fighting techniques. Kano's vision for judo was as an educational tool and a path for mental and physical development, with government and Ministry of Education recognition for its value. As such, he sought to avoid judo being perceived merely as a form of brutal competition. However, some Kodokan-affiliated judo practitioners and students, eager to prove their skills, engaged in informal matches with boxers and wrestlers. Although Kano publicly disapproved, it is said that he silently condoned these encounters. Meanwhile, practitioners of traditional jujutsu, whose schools were rooted more in practical combat, jutsu, were more eager to participate in such cross-style challenges. An often overlooked figure in these cross-style matches was none other than Kano Jigoro's nephew, Kano Kenji. Kenji was a powerful figure who controlled much of Western Japan's underworld and was a key figure in the establishment of Japan's first boxing gym. His gym, initially named the International Judo Boxing Club, later renamed the Greater Japan Boxing Association, was involved in organizing mixed matches between judo jujutsu practitioners and foreign boxers, who were often sailors from ships docked in Japanese ports. Kano Kenji's activities represent a fascinating, albeit darker side of early judo's integration with Western combat sports, demonstrating the complex relationship between Japan's traditional martial arts and the emerging global fighting techniques. His role in organizing these matches marked the beginning of mixed martial arts in Japan, though the events were not officially recognized as they took place outside of the formal martial arts institutions. To digress slightly, sumo wrestlers also held mixed martial arts matches around this time. We plan to create a video on this once I have gathered the historical materials, so if you're interested, please like and subscribe. In the midst of this, the Santel incident shook the Kodokan to its core. Ad Santel, a German-American, is considered one of the strongest practitioners of catch wrestling, and through his matches against Kodokan Judo, he is also regarded as one of the first modern mixed martial artists. He is also known as the mentor of Liu Thez, considered the greatest wrestler of the 20th century. In 1915, he fought and defeated Noguchi Kiyoshi, a formidable fighter of Shinto Rokugoryu Jujutsu. The following year, he faced Ito Tokugoro of the Kodokan, a Japanese judoka with the skill level of a 5th-degree black belt. This match is known as one of the earliest inter-style bouts in modern martial arts history. Santel, who had knowledge of jujutsu, fought under judo rules, took Ito down, and defeated him, declaring himself the world champion of judo. It should be noted that a few months after this defeat, on June 10, 1916, Ito took revenge by defeating Santel with a stranglehold, becoming the first and only judoka to ever defeat Santel. In October 1917, Santel came to Seattle and challenged Miyake Taro, a Fusen-ryu jujutsu practitioner and resident wrestler in America, with whom he had fought to a draw the previous year. Santel executed a powerful half-Nelson slam on Miyake and won. It is said that Miyake suffered dizziness for 30 minutes after the match due to the damage. Jigoro Kano, the founder of Judo, saw this as a humiliation and sent Sakai Daisuke, a 5th-degree black belt, to avenge the defeat, but Santel submitted Sakai twice with arm locks and defeated him again. Having defeated jujutsu and judo practitioners overseas and acquired their knowledge and techniques, Santel began calling himself the world judo champion. After this match, the Kodokan stopped sending challengers, and Santel decided to come to Japan to challenge the Kodokan directly. When Santel came to Japan in 1921, Kano initially showed a tacitly permissive attitude toward a match, with names like Toku Sanpo and Ishida Shinzo being suggested as opponents. However, Okabe Heita, based on his own experiences, strongly opposed the match, fearing that inter-style matches would be exploited purely for commercial purposes. After Okabe resolutely left the Kodokan in protest, Kano, persuaded by the executives, ultimately decided to refuse the match. Kano took a strict stance, declaring that any student who fought Santel would be expelled. Despite this, 6 judokas volunteered to challenge Santel, and matches were arranged with 4 of them. By mutual agreement, the matches would be conducted under neutral rules, allowing the use of judogi and permitting all kinds of throws, joint locks, and ground techniques. The matches were held at Tokyo on March 5 and 6, 1921, before an audience of 10,000 spectators. On the first day, Santel defeated the first by TKO. On the second day, he faced the second man in a match that ended in a draw after 60 minutes due to time expiration. Subsequently, Santel fought and defeated the third person. As a result of their participation, people who were involved were later stripped of their Dan ranks as disciplinary action. Although Kodokan Judo had been gradually steering toward a more comprehensive martial art by engaging in unofficial inter-style matches against wrestlers and boxers, this incident marked a turning point. From then on, the Kodokan enforced even stricter prohibitions against inter-style matches and began moving further toward human development and sport-oriented practice. Surprisingly, it was Kano's influence that played a major role in bringing bodybuilding to Japan. In 1954, Wakaki Takamaru's book was introduced as Japan's first publication on bodybuilding and modern weight training. He is well known as Kimura Masahiko and Mas Oyama's physical training teacher. However, almost 50 years earlier, Kano had already been involved in publishing a book related to bodybuilding. Today, Mr. Olympia is recognized as the world's ultimate bodybuilding competition, the stage that launched legendary muscle icons like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Ronnie Coleman. Winners of Mr. Olympia receive the Sandow Trophy, the highest honor a bodybuilder can achieve. The trophy itself is modeled after Yugen Sandow, known as the father of modern bodybuilding. At first glance, bodybuilding might seem completely unrelated to judo. Yet it was Kano who translated Yugen Sandow's work and published it in Japan all the way back in 1900. Kano didn't just recommend this training method within the judo community, he actively promoted it to the general public as well. He even went so far as to sell dumbbells to help popularize strength training across Japan. Sambo is the martial art that forms the backbone of nearly all Russian MMA fighters. One of the founders of Sambo was Vasily Oshchepkov, who during the imperial era of Russia traveled from Sakhalin to Japan and studied Judo under Kano Jigoro at the Kodokan. In the 1930s, he worked to spread Judo across various regions of the Soviet Union. But in 1937, he became a victim of Stalin's Great Purge. Accused of being a Japanese spy, he was imprisoned and later died of illness while incarcerated. Fedor Emelianenko, who was long regarded as the greatest fighter in MMA history, is known for having studied both Kodokan Judo and Sambo. Before the founding of Kodokan Judo, Jujutsu practitioners typically wore everyday clothing, such as kimono or hakama. Later, Kodokan devised a thick, coarse, and highly durable uniform that resisted tearing and abrasion, the judogi. One theory suggests that the karate-gi also originated from the Kodokan judogi. It is said that Funakoshi Gichin adopted a thinner, lighter version to avoid slowing down striking movements. The uniform Kano designed became the base not only for judo and karate, but also for Brazilian jiu-jitsu uniforms, taekwondo uniforms, sambo jackets, and other martial arts wear. The contributions Kano Jigoro made to the world of martial arts, sports, and education are immeasurable. It is said that every time the redesign of Japanese banknotes is discussed, his name comes up as a candidate for the design. While Kano Jigoro is known as the great martial artist who founded Kodokan Judo, it seems that his legacy, which far exceeds that of simply founding a major martial art, should be much more widely recognized. Thank you for watching the video all the way to the end. Your likes and subscriptions really encourage us. There are various theories regarding Jigoro Kano, Judo, and the history of Jujutsu. If you have information that is not included in the video or that differs from it, we would appreciate it if you could share it. Any additional information or corrections will be added to the description, and references will be listed on the blog. Japan B is a channel that shares random information about lesser-known aspects of Japan and Japanese martial arts. Okinawa. This island, which has beautiful seas and a unique culture and is the birthplace of karate, was originally an independent nation, but became Japanese territory after Japan's invasion. When the Pacific War began on December 7, 1941, Okinawa became the site of the only ground battle, and it is said that 1 in 4 Okinawan residents lost their lives. After the war, Okinawa was placed under American administration and was occupied by the United States for 27 years. The US dollar was used as the currency, and traffic laws were the opposite of those on the Japanese mainland. A massive US military base, which seems to divide the island into north and south, still exists in the center of the island, hindering the development of the northern region. As a result, Okinawa remains one of the poorest regions in Japan today. Karate, which landed on the Japanese mainland in 1922, continued to develop steadily both in Okinawa and on the mainland, even as it was caught up in the turmoil of war. The global expansion of karate as we see it today would not have been possible without its introduction to the martial arts. This video is about the 4 masters who brought karate from Okinawa to the mainland and the 4 major styles of mainland karate. On April 17, 1895, the same day the First Sino-Japanese War ended, the Dai Nippon Butokukai was established with the aim of promoting, educating, and honoring martial arts. Various Japanese martial arts were brought together under one roof, contributing to national prestige and boosting public morale. As part of this movement, efforts were made to standardize techniques across different styles of each martial art. Among the members were individuals who, just a few years earlier, had been real samurai. It was during this period that Jujutsu transformed into Judo, and Kenjutsu became Kendo. Later, when the Pacific War broke out, the organization came under direct government control, amassing vast financial resources and increasingly taking on the character of a war-supporting entity. After the war, it was dissolved by the American authorities. This video introduces the historical flow from the Butokukai to modern martial arts. There are 3 titles in the Butokukai. From the lowest to the highest, they are Renshi, Kyoshi, and Hanshi. Even obtaining the title of Renshi was an immense honor for a martial artist. The highest rank, Hanshi, represents the pinnacle of each martial art in Japan. In this video, we introduce Hanshi from various Japanese martial arts, as found through research, over the course of 3 episodes.